During a summer visit to my family in northern Portugal, I was inexplicably drawn to the sinister charm of a decaying, abandoned manor. The house was cloaked in chilling legends of tragedy, its architect and workers claimed by strange, untimely deaths that halted construction, leaving the structure to rot for decades. Local whispers called it cursed, a place no one dared to tread. As teenagers, my friends and I dismissed the stories as nothing more than superstition. Determined to prove everyone wrong, we made a reckless decision to step inside the crumbling walls one fateful night. What began as a thrill-seeking adventure quickly turned into something much darker, an experience that still haunts me, forcing me to question whether some places truly carry the weight of evil. So, let's dive into my story, an encounter with fear I'll never forget. If you're ready to unravel the mystery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Let's jump into my creepy experience. It was a summer evening in the north of Portugal when a group of us, just teenagers chasing adrenaline and mystery, decided to confront the whispers of local superstition. The legend of the cursed manor had loomed large in the area, a haunting tale shared in hushed tones by those too wary to venture close. By daylight, the unfinished structure was foreboding enough, its crumbling walls wrapped in thick vines and its grounds overtaken by wild, untamed weeds. But after nightfall, it became something else entirely, a place of palpable dread. The manor had been abandoned for decades, left to rot after a series of inexplicable deaths halted its construction. The architect was the first to die, found lifeless under circumstances that no one could explain. Then 2 workers followed, meeting grisly ends on the site. Superstition gripped the nearby village, spreading like wildfire. Attempts to resume construction years later were cut short when a member of the owning family perished on the property while surveying it. After that, no one dared set foot inside, and the place was left to decay, cursed and forgotten, or so the stories claimed. We were believers in the supernatural. Skeptics to the core, we dismissed the tales as mere folklore, a way for the villagers to keep their children away from danger. So armed with nothing but a single flashlight and our bravado, we set out under the cover of night to explore the manor and debunk its myths once and for all. Unbeknownst to us, my older cousin and his friends had overheard our plan. They decided to make our so-called investigation a night we'd never forget. Their intentions were mischievous, not malicious, at least that's what they'd later claim. By the time we arrived at the overgrown gates, they were already inside, lying in wait. The air grew heavier as we approached the manor. The narrow dirt path was lined with gnarled trees whose branches twisted and clawed at the night sky. The structure loomed ahead, a silhouette of jagged edges and shattered windows. As we crossed the threshold, the stillness of the place was suffocating, broken only by the crunch of gravel underfoot. Our flashlight cut through the darkness, its weak beam barely illuminating the cavernous interior. Almost immediately, strange sounds began to echo around us. Soft whispers floated through the air, disjointed and unintelligible, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. A clatter of debris startled us, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and far too close. Shadows twisted unnaturally across the walls, elongating into grotesque, unrecognizable shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. The atmosphere felt alive, like the house itself was breathing, watching, waiting. The fear was instant and primal. We whispered nervously to one another, trying to rationalize what we were experiencing, but the growing tension made it difficult to think clearly. The flashlight flickered, plunging us into brief moments of total darkness. Each time it came back on, the room seemed subtly changed, as though something had shifted in our absence. By the time we reached the staircase to the upper floor, we were barely holding it together. The creaking of the steps beneath our feet was deafening in the oppressive silence. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if beckoning us deeper into the manor's grasp. A cold draft swept through the corridor, carrying with it the faint scent of decay. And then we saw it. A figure, draped in white, materialized at the far end of the hallway. It stood perfectly still, its face obscured, yet its presence was overwhelming. One of us screamed, a raw, unrestrained sound that echoed through the house. The figure began to move toward us, its steps slow and deliberate. Panic erupted. We stumbled over each other in our haste to retreat, crashing into walls and scattering in every direction. At the height of our terror, my cousin revealed himself, pulling the sheet from his head and doubling over with laughter. His friends emerged from the shadows, their faces flushed with the thrill of the prank. They roared with laughter as we stood there, trembling and humiliated. They teased us relentlessly as we made our way back toward the stairs. The relief of knowing it had all been a joke began to settle in, though the lingering unease refused to dissipate entirely. My cousin, still draped in the white sheet, pranced mockingly around us, mimicking a ghost with exaggerated movements. But the manor had not finished with us. As we descended the staircase, my cousin misstepped. The staircase had no railing, and in his careless antics, he lost his balance. The sickening thud of his body hitting the ground below was a sound I will never forget. Chaos ensued. We rushed to his side, but his injuries were severe. He was barely conscious as we scrambled to call for help. The wait for the ambulance felt like an eternity, and when it arrived, the paramedics worked frantically to stabilize him. Despite their efforts, he succumbed to his injuries en route to the hospital in Porto. The reality of his death was unbearable. What had started as a harmless prank ended in unspeakable tragedy. The house had claimed another victim, and this time it was someone we loved. Even now, more than 2 decades later, I can still see that night in vivid detail. The laughter, the terror, the whispers in the dark, and the haunting stillness of the manor as we left it behind. I returned to the area this past summer, and nothing has changed. The house remains as it was, unfinished, abandoned, and wrapped in an aura of death. I still don't believe in the supernatural, or at least that's what I tell myself. But when I think of the manor, I feel a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Some places are stained by the tragedies they've witnessed, and some curses refuse to be forgotten. The manor stands as a grim testament to the lives it has claimed, its silence heavier than words, daring anyone to challenge its sinister legacy again.